character design is a bit of a balancing act, even more so when redesigning an icon. Because redesigning a beloved character isn't simply improving them or adapting them, it's about understanding why folks remember them or love the original design in the first place. What individual parts define the character, if any, what parts are too essential to leave out or change, and what parts can evolve without losing what made that character recognizable. And Tifa Lockhart was likely one hell of a challenge I can only imagine. Because to be fair, Tifa's original outfit is so ridiculously iconic for many reasons. Let's be honest with ourselves here. Tifa has one of the most recognizable character designs in gaming, but it's also a little ridiculous. A very short skirt, a tight tank top over a large bust supported by what appears to be nothing but imagination, suspenders that don't seem to suspend anything but boy do they look cool, and big red boots for kicking your ass. It's very much a product of that late 90s Japanese character design. Stylish and memorable, absolutely, but not necessarily practical for an acrobatic fighter. So when Final Fantasy VII Remake was first announced many years ago, I was thinking about how they were going to approach character redesigns, especially Tifa's. Because unlike some characters where you could make some changes and get away with it, Tifa couldn't be changed all that much. The tank top had to stay, the skirt had to stay, the boots had to stay, the iconic long dark hair had to stay. Change too much or even change something small yet effective and it stops looking like Tifa. But on the flip side, if you keep everything exactly the same, then the design starts feeling difficult to justify in a more realistic visual style. Out of every character in Final Fantasy VII, Tifa surely must have been one of the most intimidating redesigns Square Enix faced. And credit where credit is due. I think they nailed it. Like, a lot was changed and yet it maintains the look. It was a stroke of genius in a character redesign. Now, before anyone accuses me of some bias, I'm not exactly a huge fan of the Final Fantasy VII Remake series. I haven't been shy about talking about this. I've been pretty vocal about my criticisms. But when something is done right, it deserves recognition, especially in the ever-divisive Final Fantasy fandom. Tifa just so happens to be one of the best redesigns Square Enix has ever produced. So, let's start with the top. The white tank top remains, it couldn't be anything else. Immediately, the silhouette is preserved, and above that, her identity is preserved. But notice the subtle adjustments. The top appears thicker, more structured and supportive. Beneath it sits what appears to be a sort of sports bra or athletic support garment of some kind. And to be fair, that makes perfect sense. Because Tifa isn't just out here looking fashionable, she's a martial artist, an acrobatic fighter. Someone who spends most of her time launching herself through the air and kicking unwilling folks and suplexing weapons. A design that acknowledges that reality is a welcome change and, most importantly, it doesn't ruin the look. The shape remains, the silhouette remains, and therefore, character remains consistent. It's simply a more of a believable evolution of the original idea. And then we move to the skirt, and this was the part I was most tentative about regarding a redesign. Because the skirt had to stay. You can't change it. It's one of the defining elements of Tifa's visual identity. A ludicrously short yet fashionable miniskirt that is quite distinct on the character. Though not exactly ideal for someone constantly performing a variety of kicks, you know? So how do you modernize this exactly? Well, Square Enix found a surprisingly elegant solution. The skirt remains, but it's no longer form-fitting. It's layered and structured. It became functional. Still fashionable, still unmistakably Tifa, but now importantly it looks like something a fighter could actually move in. The addition of compression shorts underneath was another smart choice. Again practical, sensible, but also it doesn't damage the silhouette whatsoever. That is key. Good redesigns evolve and they don't replace, which is quite tough especially on a character with a limited outfit. The sort of utility pouch things hanging from her hips are one of the few additions I'm less enthusiastic about. I understand the purpose they could have, sort of. They help push the overall design toward a more combat-ready aesthetic, an almost military-esque look. To a degree. Well, as close as something can look, given the outfit. Personally, I think they alter the silhouette slightly more than necessary, but this is very much a minor nitpick. The overall design remains incredibly strong. Then there are these suspenders, or perhaps more accurately, these things masquerading as suspenders. Because in the original design, they never really made much sense. They look cool, sure, but their purpose was always arbitrary. The remake version solves this in a very clever way. The lower half still evokes this suspenders look, but they become more of a thicker harness type system. Sort of purposeful and perhaps more practical. What purpose they serve I don't rightly know, but the attempt to be more than just style is welcome. And yet visually they still remind us of the original design. This is exactly what good adaptation looks like. Not replacing an idea, refining it. Now, these long socks were actually one of the elements I struggled with at first. Because when you've looked at a character for over a decade, you become accustomed to where color appears, and where it breaks for skin to appear, how the silhouette breaks up visually. So initially, the longer athletic socks seemed almost intrusive, as if they were disrupting the balance. However, over time, I've completely come around. In fact, I think they improved the design quite a bit. Not only do they provide protection, or at least padding, for a character constantly engaging in hand-to-hand combat, but they also add visual style to the design. And Square Enix, you dog you. Practical? Absolutely. Appealing? Also absolutely. Functional padded socks and thigh highs too. Well played. Next, the boots, another shining moment in redesign. Because Tifa's original boots are incredibly stylized, very anime and very exaggerated. The remake boots retain their bulk, their presence and their silhouette. The flared openings help preserve that larger shape that defined the original design. So, different details, same visual language. Even the gloves were handled surprisingly well, with one caveat. I always wondered how they were going to adapt the gloves, but specifically that strange circular elbow guard into a modern design. But I think their approach was solid, a lengthened glove that ends in a sort of leather elbow piece without feeling detached. So rather than like in the OG where it was two short gloves and long arm sleeve type details, it was now practical gloves that maintained a sort of short glove look while making the rest of the design functional along with it. I do like that on the one glove over here she still has the long sleeve, but rather than being what seems like just leather straps, they seem like a padded arm sock type of deal, which mirrors the socks on the legs, which is a nice little addition. It rounds it out quite nicely. The silhouette remains, and therefore, the identity remains intact. My only real gripe is that I wish the red elements were a tad more pronounced. One thing I loved about the original design was its color distribution. White top, black skirt. But red gloves, red boots, red eyes. The red acted as a sort of visual anchor throughout the design. The remake version tones this down. This is just a nitpick, not some giant flaw. I think it would have helped the overall design, but it does not inherently ruin the redesign by any measure. And finally, the hair. Perfect. The long dark hair remains one of Tifa's most recognizable features. Yet it never loses what made it memorable. It's a wonderful example of restraint. And that's really the lesson here. Because I've said before, great character redesigns aren't about changing things for the sake of change. It's about understanding what makes a character recognizable, what makes them iconic, and then carefully evolving those ideas for a newer audience and a newer depiction of the character. She's still Tifa, clearly so. The silhouette remains, the visual identity remains, the personality is there, so the spirit of the OG remains. The design simply evolved and evolved well, and in an industry where redesigns often miss the point entirely, Squall Decidia, this is a hell of an achievement. This is a character redesign done right.